Hey guys, I'm Tiffany,
And I'm Stephanie,
and we're Sisters
Sisters
of
of
the
the
South,
South.
coming to you in October as Southern Sisters of Spirits. Back with some more Halloween stories for you. Before we get started, we just want to remind you to please like and share our videos if you feel like it's worth liking and sharing. And please subscribe for more true crime content every week, which is absolutely free. Free, and nothing's better than free.
That's right.
And we also want to give a little shout out to SoFly. SoFly! And I'm going to let Stephanie tell you about them now.
Love us some SoFly. They
Woohoo!
actually do our merchandise that we wear, our caps and our shirts. They are a small family owned business here in the Houston area that specialize in embroidering and also in lasering. And they put that on accessories such as beanies, hoodies, aprons, caps, keychains, anything you can think of. And they will take a special occasion and make it extraordinary for your loved ones. So please reach out to them. We'll have their information in our description box. And
Christmas is coming up, guys, and everyone needs a great gift. Check out SoFly.
yep, they will make your Christmas special. So check them out, guys. And from here, we're going to move forward. We're going to take uh, a little trip back to San Jose, California today. And we're also going to get into our time machine and we're going to fly all the way back to 1984. To me, 1984 was not that long ago, but in reality, we're talking 40 years. So, actually, 40 years exactly.
Yeah.
So that doesn't seem like a long time ago, but that's a long time ago. So,
I'm just going to bring up something that just came to mind about 1984. I
mhm,
turned 4 that year,
mhm.
and Stephanie went to school that day and left me a piece of gum and a card. And to this day, I remember thinking, how did she get gum?
What? I don't even remember this.
I don't know. You taped it to the counter. And I was like, wow, my sister left me a piece of it. It was one piece, not a package.
Well, of course not.
I wasn't worth a whole package, but I was worth one piece of
Hey, I thought
gum.
about you.
You did. And I was so excited. And I remember that to this day 40 years. God, I'm
That's a
old.
long time. And listen, back in the day, I tell everybody I lived on gum and Dr. Pepper. Don't know how I functioned, and I don't understand how I'm still here with any nutritional value whatsoever, but it makes sense. I left you a piece of gum.
Dr. Pepper is still very special to this day.
That's right. And back then, they had Dr. Pepper gum. So I would chew
Yes,
Dr. Pepper gum.
with juice in it.
Yes.
That's
And I
not
would
what she
drink
left
Dr.
me, though,
Pepper. So
guys.
it was probably Hubba Bubba or something.
No, it was like
3 cent gum.
Wrigley's.
Oh, Wrigley.
Better not be the 3 cent
I
gum.
dug that shit out of mom's purse.
I don't care. I don't care where it came from. You taped it to the counter with my name on it.
Well, I'm glad you remember because I don't. I did a lot of little things back then that I probably don't remember, but that's so sweet. I need to work on myself as I got older because that's so sweet that you remember that and that I don't, and that it tells me that I was sweet at one time.
That one day.
That one day, 40 years ago.
It hasn't happened since, guys. Just kidding. That's why I remember it. It was that one day. Okay, so sorry, guys. On to the story.
So thank you. So yeah, 40 years ago, a very long time. And we're going to talk about Doreen Ray Hutchins. She was born in Santa Clara, California in 1952. She grew up in a very loving family. She had a job as a physical therapist, and that's how she met her first husband, Michael Dennis, also known as Mike. Michael Dennis worked at Lockheed Factory as a sprayer, which was right next door to Doreen's job. Mike had suffered from hearing loss, which often caused him to stutter. His friend, Jim Parrott, told Snapped on Oxygen that Mike was depressed and he didn't socialize a lot. He didn't often have girlfriends either, so when he met Doreen, he said he had found the one. I don't know, guys, if that's a good thing or not, but it Sounds like poor old Mike was just taking the first thing that come across to him. So at this point, poor Mike. But anyway, Mike and Doreen got married a few months later and had one son named Paul. They were often stressed, and it would lead to their divorce in 1977. Doreen had custody of their son, Paul, but Mike would have him on the weekends. He was very angry and bitter about the divorce, and he was angry that Doreen was able to move on so quickly. So, as we all know, there's usually one person in a divorce that just can't move on. They didn't want the divorce to begin with. They're pissed off about the situation. They're mad that you didn't stay with them. They're mad that you've moved on. They're just pissed off. And it seems like Mike was probably a person who held grudges anyway. But that definitely, he just couldn't get over it.
Well, and it sounds like he didn't date much. So, you kind of cling to that person, I
Yeah, it's
guess.
his first love. So
Yeah.
not only is it just a bad situation, and to give him a little credit, it's his family. He loved
Yeah.
her enough to marry her. He has a child. He probably values the relationship, and it was super hard on him. But I don't think that Mike, at this point, we're learning that Mike just didn't have a lot of mental maturity at this point, and he just couldn't get past, okay, it didn't work out. Let's just make it work the best we can for little Paul, and we're going to move on. I think he was just stuck.
Well, and there's also those people that are not socially mature also.
Well, it sounds like he was a little socially awkward.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you've got a guy who is down and out because
Hmm.
he can't get out and meet people very easily. He meets this woman, falls in love, and then they separate. They leave. So, I mean, it's
Yeah. There's a lot of moving parts
yeah.
on Mr. Mike, and we haven't even gotten very far into the story. But it makes me feel for Doreen because I'm sure she had a little bit of guilt going on and just hoping that he'd find that next girlfriend so he'd leave her the hell alone. I'm sure that crossed her mind many times because sometimes you just want them to start dating and get out there so they'll leave you the hell alone and you can get on with your life 100% fully. So I'm sure that crossed her
I'm
mind.
sure it was a lot on her being his one and only
Right.
everything.
Yeah, for sure. So Doreen got right back out there and soon met Charles Abert. He was a carpet store owner. He and Doreen had a whirlwind romance and got married. They had a baby named Deanna in 1979. In February of 1980, Paul, who was 4 years old at the time, went into the backyard where the Aberts had a pool. It was surrounded by a fence, but Paul was able to climb over the fence and fall into the pool. Doreen was the only other one home at the time, and by the time she found Paul, it was too late. Paul was put on life support but died 3 days later.
Wow.
And I can't even imagine her complete and total grief at this point.
Guilt.
Yeah, guilt, because you're losing your child. I'm sure she questioned if I'd have done this, if I had done that,
Absolutely.
the what ifs, if, I'd done this or could I have done this? I'm sure she lived with that grief. Not only that, she has a contentious relationship with Mike. And so not only is she grieving for her son, but I'm sure that she's very anxious that she's even got to tell Mike that Paul has passed and it's on her watch. I'm sure in her mind, she's thinking, oh, this is going to cause me even more grief than he's already giving me at
Yeah.
this point. So I'm sure there's a lot of things going on with Doreen and a lot of stress at this point in time of her life. Mike Dennis filed for a wrongful death suit against Charles and Doreen, and in March of 1982, the case was taken to trial. The judge ruled in favor of Charles and Doreen. And guys, I'm sure this pissed Mike off because he feels like at this point he's entitled to something. Like, look, I lost Doreen, I've lost Paul, I've lost everything at this point that meant anything to me, and then this judge just takes it all away. Like you don't deserve anything.
And it's all her fault.
And it's her fault.
Yeah, every bit of it.
She walked away from the marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Now our son is dead, so you need to pay, and you need to pay me for it.
Yeah.
Because I'm the one suffering, not you. I mean,
Right.
It's obvious that's what he's thinking. And so, of course, Mike was bitter. that this is rumored to be what pushed him over the edge. I mean, he was already losing his shit. But when the judge said, no, you actually take this out of my court, that there's no room for this here, and dude, get on with your life, it just pissed him off. But to top all of that off, Mike ends up losing his job at Lockheed. And guys, if you know anything about Lockheed, that's a good paying job. Lockheed pays really well. Even for people who are intermediate, they pay them very well. And especially back in the early 80s, they were very well known to pay their employees very well, and they still do. So this was a huge blow, probably not only to his lifestyle, but to his ego. Because now he's lost Doreen, he's lost Paul, and he's lost his livelihood. So we're taking a guy who was already over the edge, and they've just pushed him completely off the cliff. Like, life is just shoved a big one up his ass, and he is losing his shit.
And in his defense, I mean, I can kind of see how that can happen. I mean, you've lost your son. You're already grieving a marriage and angry over that because she has found someone else and moved on. Your son is gone. How can you hold a job?
Oh, right. I can't imagine, like, my job, guys, I work almost 12 hours a day. And if I just don't feel good, or if I have a extremely bad headache, worse than normal days, I will struggle. I can't imagine if I've lost my wife, my son, and then I have to go to work and give it my all. What all do you give? Because you've lost all in your life already. So what is there to give? And so I'm sure he didn't have a lot to give. I'm sure he just showed up, did his time, and went home, and probably didn't have a lot to give while he was there.
Right.
And so at some point, unfortunately, with these big Fortune 500 companies, they're not going to have a lot of patience with your grief and your devastation, because they've got to move on and keep up with the numbers and their processes, and they got to get stuff done. So if you are lagging or causing their numbers to fall, you got to go. And that's unfortunate. Maybe they should have given him some family leave, given him some time to,
Yeah.
to get everything together for
Which
himself.
they may have done that.
Well, he might have, and it didn't say, but who knows? If he's already angry and bitter, he might have caused some issues at work that made them think, look, this guy's just,
We can't do it anymore.
And we're just going to let him go and cut our losses, because there's no coming back.
But there's no details of what they offered him or anything.
Absolutely
Okay.
not. No. So not only did he lose his job at this point, but he was convinced, and I think he convinced himself that Doreen had intentionally murdered their son. And I think his mindset, guys, at this point in time is, well, she didn't want me, so she just threw me away, and who's the next thing to me would be Paul. And so she just didn't care about Paul, and she just wanted him to die anyway so she could move on with her new life. And so he just self-talked himself into believing that Doreen's not grieving over our son. I'm the only one grieving. I'm the only one who cared. So Doreen's the reason why I've lost everything in my life that I cared about. And he just let that thought process take over. And that's toxic. And we all go through that in a divorce. You self-talk, all those things, but a lot of the times we can get past that and start to heal and move forward and start to see that our pain was what was telling us that, and that wasn't actually reality. Because in reality, Doreen was at this point carrying probably more of a grief in her heart than he was, because she was the last one there with Paul. And not only is she grieving, but she's probably blaming herself.
Absolutely, I would.
Yeah. Oh, that would be so unbearable.
But I mean, I can honestly understand the anger on his part.
Absolutely.
Because I would be angry. I don't know how easily I could let that go. Knowing it probably wasn't their fault, but well, and I don't even know if that's true, would be truly anger towards that person, or angry because I wasn't there either. So you have to have someone to blame, right?
Yeah. Well, and it was easy for him not to blame himself.
Well, of course.
At this point,
He's already
real easy.
angry with her.
Yeah,
Why
he's
would
already
he blame
mad.
himself?
Yeah.
He tried in this marriage.
Hmm.
He gave it his all.
Hmm.
She's horrible and
She's the
left
one
and
that
moved
walked off,
on.
remarried to a guy. They moved to a house with a pool. If she'd have been with me, Paul wouldn't have had access to a pool. This wouldn't
Right.
have happened. Paul would still be here.
There's a
He's
lot to blame her for.
right in his mind,
Exactly.
in his unhealed, conflicted mind. And so, yeah, I'm not going to lie. I would take that to my death. And although I might be able to move forward, I would unfortunately
And
probably
you
hold
have
a
to bring
grudge
in
too.
his depression from before.
Yeah, he was
So
already
he's
dealing with
already had
depression.
those issues.
So his mental health is struggling
Hmm.
anyway on a normal day, just
Right.
normal life. Then you add on all of these traumatic events in his life in a pretty short period of time, and he's just going to lose it. So yeah, I will say I feel for Mike. I also feel for Doreen at this
Absolutely.
point. But you have to take responsibility for your feelings and your own actions. So on Halloween night, 1984, Doreen, who was 8 months pregnant at the time, took Deanna trick or treating. Charles claims he left the house for about 15 minutes to go to the store and get more candy to pass out. Around 9 p.m., someone knocked on their front door. Doreen answered the door to a frightening sight. There was a man in a wolf mask holding a machete. And let's be honest, in the 80s, opening the door to someone that looked like that, I don't know if you would immediately think that's too frightening. Maybe, but
Well, we had some creepy kid
we
costumes,
had
so
creepy
an
adults were
adult
dressed
costume
too.
is
And
going to
so,
be.
when I'm going through the story, I'm thinking, well, would she immediately be just freaked out?
She might have paused.
There might have been a pause. I'm sure for a second
Like,
she's trying to, and
it's
it
a
depends when she
grown
opens
man.
the door. Does he say trick or treat? Does he just stand there with a machete like this? I mean, you
He's a
know,
grown man by himself. Even if he were there for candy, I would pause. Like, whoa, what?
yeah. And she's there by herself. So
Mm.
there probably was some pause. But Deanna was interviewed in the Snapped episode, and she said that the man said, "I'm going to kill you."
Mm.
So it makes you wonder, when she opened the door, did he immediately say, "I'm going to kill you"? Or did he pause and then say that? It just makes you wonder, um, you know, I don't know. But Doreen told Deanna to hide behind the couch. Doreen and her unborn baby were brutally murdered. Charles returned home and found the horrific scene. The front door was unlocked, and Doreen was laying right near the entrance, and their unborn son was in the living room.
Mm.
Doreen was struck in the head and the body with the machete. Her left hand was severed. The fetus of her unborn baby was removed and had been bludgeoned. There was also so much blood that Charles actually slipped and fell in it. While making his way to the phone to call 911, Charles found Deanna hiding in the living room behind the couch as her mother had directed her to do. So, here we have at this point Charles, who comes home thinking, I have this bag of candy and we're going to move on with the night. And he walks into this horrific, bloody scene, and he's trying to get to the phone, and there's nowhere to go because the entranceway is full of blood.
Mm.
And back in the 80s, there was usually a long entry hallway that would lead you to the living room, and everything was boxed off back then. It wasn't open concept. And then typically you'd have a phone in the kitchen and in the bedroom. And that was typical, unless you were rich, and then you'd have one in each room, or one in the living room, the kitchen, and the bedroom. But at this point, they only have one in the kitchen. And so he's trying to get through this narrow hallway. There's nowhere to go without getting blood on you. Not to mention, I'm sure he wanted to stop and check her vitals. And think of all the things that's going through his mind at this point. Is the person still in the house? What happened?
Where's our
Where's
daughter?
our daughter? What? And the trauma of seeing your unborn son
Oh,
laying there. I mean, I can't even imagine. Like, what do you do first? You know what I'm saying? Because maybe it was obvious that she had passed at this point, but I would be, my mind would be on overload. So, of course, he's tripping and falling, and he's just trying to get some help for Doreen. And thank God that he found Deanna. And thank God Deanna was alive at this
Mhm.
point. When the San Jose police arrived, they too found the terrible scene. Charles was hysterical and covered in blood. He was first looked at as a suspect, which is very typical. And yeah, there's nothing strange about that. He's covered in blood at a crime scene.
Plus, he's the husband.
He's the husband. They're always going to be the first person that they look at, and then it's process of elimination from there. So by the front door, they found a wolf mask. The wolf mask had big eyes, big teeth, and a tongue sticking out. There was also a trail of blood leaving the Abert house, trailing down the block. The police took the blood samples from the home. They also found out about the issues that Charles and Doreen were having with Mike Dennis, and they left to go talk to Mike. So at some point, the person that was standing at her door with the intent to kill her was wearing this mask. And at some point, they decided to reveal who they are. And I think it's because they're angry and they want her to know that I'm after you and this is who I am. And you know why I'm here to do away with you. And I want to show you my face. It was almost like a pleasure thing. It was a pleasure that he inflict pain on her and she knew who was doing it, is my opinion on that. Unless she pulled the mask off of him. But at some point, he is so deranged, this person, that he just leaves and leaves the mask there.
Not
So,
giving much thought that people can see who he is.
right.
Running through a neighborhood, right?
Right. Yeah. He's running. Yeah. It's like a subdivision. And if you think about those masks back in the day, and I'm talking about this like it's today's society, DNA back then basically didn't exist except blood and fingerprints. But those masks were like a rubbery
Ugh.
plastic and they would pull your hair. So if you pulled, and they weren't easy to put on, they weren't easy to take off. That's why I think that he intentionally took the mask off.
He probably couldn't breathe.
Probably couldn't breathe, and I'm sure it left a lot of his hair inside that mask. And I've thought about that, but I'm not sure that they had any type of hair DNA other than just putting it under a microscope and comparing it.
Yeah.
Color and texture, maybe. But that mask would not be easy to just take off and on. So either one of two things, and I think this was it. I think he took his mask off on purpose to reveal who he was while he was doing it to her. Or Doreen, in the process of fighting him, took the mask off and he just forgot to take it with him.
I wonder why wear the mask to begin with? To make sure she opened the door?
It could be that. Also, it's Halloween, so.
Well, yeah, but he took it off and ran down the street,
Well, that's
so.
why I think it's a possibility she took it off of him, although I think that would be hard to do, but it's a possibility that she did that and he just
Didn't care. He didn't think about it after that. Just trying to get away.
Yeah. So, in the meantime, Doreen succumbed to her injuries on the way to the hospital. The police knocked on Mike's door. He didn't answer, but they heard running water and saw lights on. Mike finally decided to answer the door. The police noticed that Mike had a bandage on his hand, and he told them that he got the injury from playing with a knife. And so this guy, at this point, he's just going with the flow. He gets home, he's like,
when I'm by myself, I like to play with knives.
Yeah, I mean,
it's my hobby.
I'm going to wrap my hand up and go to the door and answer it with the police. I mean, he took his sweet time. And
well, because he's washing himself, possibly.
Maybe he didn't hear the door knocking.
He cut himself.
Yeah, he's washing and cleaning up.
Come on.
I mean, but it doesn't seem like there was a lot of thought process. And maybe in his defense at this point, Mike didn't think the police would be called that quickly. I mean, I don't know. But yeah, he took his slow, sweet time. They also found blood around Mike's house, bloody gauze, and some of his clothing were bloody. The police had also looked into his car with a flashlight and noticed blood on the steering wheel and gear shift. And immediately, Mike was arrested for murder. And of course, I'd been like, case closed.
Obviously.
This guy's going to jail. There's nothing more to see here, folks. He's guilty. We're taking him to jail. And honestly, I would think that's it. That's the end of the story. You
It's
know,
never the end.
so the police did a second search at Mike's house. They found a receipt from a hardware store and a label for a machete with an 18-inch blade. And that's a big blade, folks. So in the garage, they found two handmade coffins and body bags.
Handmade coffins.
Yeah.
Another reason for weapons.
And well, I would like to say maybe he was going to decorate his front yard with these handmade coffins,
Sure.
but it's Halloween. They should already be out in the front yard anyway.
It took
Not
too
the
long. Maybe
garage.
he's going to wait until next year.
Maybe next, maybe something. It's a hobby. He loves to whittle the sticks and whittle coffins with knives, and play
This
with
is a
knives.
weird dude if he's not the murderer.
Yeah.
Sorry, officer. I like to whittle coffins in my spare time.
I mean,
I got to make a living. I lost my job.
that's strange. And if I knew, I mean, if I knew someone whose hobby was making coffins or was just making coffins and putting them in their garage, I would be cautious of myself every time I was around him because I'm like, what are you planning, dude?
I'm hoping he's not my neighbor.
That's so, and body bags. It's just strange, right? This is a guy who's very angry and bitter.
Well, I know now you can buy like coffins and body bags on Amazon,
Well, you can go to Home Depot and buy them now.
Walmart.
Yeah.
But in the 80s, how easy was that to get?
No. You may get to order them from a catalog that got sent to you in the mail, but you couldn't just go down to Walmart or
We got Sears. They didn't sell body bags.
TG&Y and get coffins and fake coffins, of course. And
Well, yeah, but he's whittling those.
yeah, he's whittling
The
these.
body
It's a
bags
hobby,
is
for
what I'm
God's
curious
sake.
about.
I mean,
It's the
guy's gotta
body
have a hobby.
bags.
And the body bags. It makes you wonder, did
They're
he
not
know someone that
backpacks.
lived at a funeral? Or not lived at a funeral home. Worked at a funeral home, maybe? I don't know.
And used his garage as storage, but
It was the body bags, and they're calling them body bags. I don't know.
they are pretty big.
I mean, they're pretty daggone big. You can buy them really big. It's really strange. But they suspected that Mike was going to kill Charles that night as well, but luckily he wasn't home. Mike was released 48 hours later because the evidence wasn't strong enough against him, and that blows my mind. I mean, how much evidence do you need?
Well, you know, that one person's going to believe he is whittling coffins with a machete.
Yeah, and it's a hobby.
Well, of
It's
course.
a hobby. So cut the guy a break. I mean, he's a nice guy. He's never harmed anybody. Cut the guy a break. He likes to whittle coffins in his garage, I
He's
mean,
got anxiety.
yeah, he's got anxiety and, you know, body bags. Oh, who cares? Maybe he's going to use them for garbage bags to rake leaves or something. I mean, there's always going to be that one person who is going to give that benefit of the doubt, even though there's so much evidence mounting against Mike at this point in time.
Yeah, I'm not that person.
Oh, I'm not that person. No, there's.
I'm like, hey, Mike, you got to go.
Yeah, there's blood in your car, down the block, all the way to go.
We followed the blood to your house.
There's a bandage on your hand. You're guilty. Get in the car. Okay, you're prison bound, buddy. But yeah, we have those people
Special
people who think differently. So on November 5th, 1984, Mike was arrested again for murder with special circumstances that made him eligible for the death penalty. His blood type matched the blood at the crime scene, and thank God that the police did their due diligence and didn't just give up. I mean, they knew this guy was guilty. And so I'm sure, I don't know for a fact, but I'm sure that the police kept an eye on him during the process of finding out the blood type, because this guy, obviously, they know he did it. It's obvious at this point in time. So I'm sure that they had people staked out watching him.
Oh, yeah.
And his every move. Because at this point, let's be honest, Charles is probably looking behind his back, scared that he's going to come back and hurt him and Deanna. And so I would have been on high alert. I mean, I would have been packing and hot and ready to go, thinking that Mike was going to come after me and my daughter at this point, because I'm sure that Charles knew it was him too. At this point, there's no doubt. This guy's guilty. but they had to get enough evidence against him to be able to take him to trial. They also found out that Mike had dressed as a big bad wolf the previous year and attended a Halloween party. He also took pictures, which was confirmed by a woman who attended the same party. So this fool, I mean, he's whittling coffins and, doing all this mess
Buying new machetes, but not a new Halloween costume.
Yeah, let's just use the one that we used last year. Let's be a cheap ass. Let's go buy the best machete on the market, but let's use last year's costume that
no one will know.
What the hell, dude? This guy, this tells you his mental state at this point, because all he cares about is hurting Doreen.
Well, and one question I have was, what was his plan exactly? He murders her, he leaves her, and he goes home to his whittled coffins?
Yeah.
Was he planning to put her in the body bag and carry her back? He didn't bring anything.
I don't think he
put much thought into that.
I don't think he did. I think he executed what he meant to do, which was kill her. Now, there could be a multitude of things. It is Halloween night in a subdivision. Maybe someone came up on him after this happened. He thought, man, I better get out of here. He ain't got time to throw her up over his arm or drag her out to...
He forgot the body bag.
Yeah, he forgot the body bags. Where did he park?
And, no one would have questioned a big bad wolf with a body bag.
No, absolutely not.
It's Halloween.
Yeah, it's Halloween.
See, he didn't put that much thought. Thank God he did not put that much thought into it.
Yeah, and he must have parked down the road, because not only, he parks down the road.
Well, people would have recognized his car being in front of their house.
Right, but he's trailing blood all the way down the block. So what? You might as well have parked in the front yard.
There was some thought here and then some thought over here, but there's a whole lot missing in between.
There's a lot of gray, and he didn't connect. And so this is a guy who is mentally immature to begin with. He doesn't know how to handle his emotion. And his only thought process at this point is kill Doreen.
It's hard to focus anger. That's something you have to learn. Mm-hmm. He's so angry, he can't focus where to put that. It's just all over the place.
Right.
And
I don't think that this was just, he gets mad that night and then decides to go do it. This was planned. I mean,
obviously,
coffins, and he has body bags, and he knew what he was doing. He just didn't see it through. And so, what's the point of having a plan? I mean, did you just plan to go to prison? I don't get it.
You know what? I'm going to throw this thought out there. Obviously, I don't know. But I wonder if it wasn't planned for that night. Maybe that was a last minute thing. Maybe he just found out she was pregnant.
Well, she was 8 months pregnant.
But that doesn't mean anything. He may not have known she was pregnant when their son died.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Because what's the connection now?
Yeah. And so he just, it's like, you know what? You don't get to have another child.
Yes.
Our only child is dead. And you don't get to bring another joy, another blessing into the world and have joy.
Maybe that's why he chose
Very well could be.
To grab it's Halloween. I'm doing it.
Mm-hmm.
No one will know it was me, and I'll leave all my other stuff here. I don't need it.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know.
Later.
I mean, it doesn't sound like to me that was meant to be the day.
Right.
If he didn't finish his plan.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, because, I mean, he's so bitter and angry at this point. But Mike's trial began on July of 1988. He pleaded guilty to first-degree murder of Doreen and second-degree murder of Doreen's unborn baby. In September of 1999, he was sentenced to death. However, when the state of California later overturned the death penalty, his sentence was converted to life in prison at San Quentin. Michael Dennis shows no remorse for the slayings to this day. And in an interview at Marin County Prison, Mike said, "I know I'll get my case overturned eventually, but if I had a choice between dying tomorrow or spending 30 more years here, I would pick death tomorrow." Yeah, dude, we don't care what you want. Nobody asked you. Nobody cares. And you didn't have remorse for their deaths, so why should anybody have remorse for you? I mean, I'm sorry. spend the rest of your life there. We're not paying for it here in Texas. California is, and they're the ones who overturned the death penalty, so let them pay for you. Okay, their taxpayer dollars can just pay for you to sit there till you die. So nobody cares what you want.
That's right.
Sorry. My opinion, I know everybody has their opinion about the death penalty, but if you admit to killing someone and you absolutely have no remorse, and it's just something because you're a bitter person, you just felt like it needed to be done out of your own ego, out of your own anger, and you admit to it the way he did, then why are you still here? There should be no question about the death penalty. To me, it's an eye for an eye. And so whatever California wants to do with him, but if he was here in Texas, hey, fly him on over here. We'll put him on death penalty here. They don't sit that long, and we'll take care of him for you. Because as far as I'm concerned, he doesn't need to continue to live. But Charles and Deanna have forgiven Mike. And in a 2016 interview, Deanna said, I want him to know we survived and we're making it. He hasn't conquered us. And, kudos to you guys, because that is a blessing from God to be able to forgive someone who has destroyed your family and your life, or tried to. And it sounds like that they've lent Mike some grace, and they've come to peace or made peace with the circumstances, which really is the only thing you can do in a scenario like this. But I don't know. I just think I would be wishing him misery for the rest of his life.
I don't know how I would feel, but I like how she worded it. Like, you didn't win. You didn't get us down.
Yeah.
And I like that.
Yeah. We're still here living our lives. We're going to be as happy as we can possibly be while you're as miserable as you can possibly be, and we're moving forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's their legacy, is their strength. And again, whatever your belief system is, I believe in God. That comes from God, or a God source, to be able to forget. And it also keeps you from getting bitter the way Mike was, and
Well, yeah, because that's where his came from, right?
Yeah.
His anger, his grief.
And let's be honest, that's where these horrible crimes, usually that's why they happen, is because of the anger and the bitterness that builds up over time. May it be the specific circumstance that we're talking about, or other circumstances that's happened in the past of their life. They just build on that through the years and become more angry. And ultimately, they do a crime like this that changes multitudes of people's lives. Generations will be affected because of what Mike did.
But he had a choice. He had a choice, and he chose the wrong one.
Yeah, Charles and Deanna chose not to let that dictate the rest of their lives. So good for them. And we are praying for your peace to continue, and that you continue to move forward in your life with great blessings. And we're sorry that happened to you, but we wanted to put your story out there. And number one, we want everybody to know who Doreen was, and it sounds like she was a lovely person. But to also know that people like Charles and Deanna don't let that dictate the rest of their lives. And there is a community out there for support. And I just think that Charles and Deanna need to be put up on a pedestal for their strength and not letting this monster dictate the rest of their life.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but guys, we're going to close out tonight, but tell us what you think about the story. Have you heard about it? What do you think?
Do you think he was like, well, that's fine. I don't have a job. I'll go to prison for it. But I was actually just whittling.
Well, he admitted to it, though.
It doesn't matter if people admit to things all the time. He didn't have a job. He didn't have a life. Maybe he's like, well, whatever.
I don't have anything to lose at this point.
Yeah.
Let California feed me for the rest of
Exactly.
my life.
I'm just saying, guys, you never know.
It's a possibility. But yeah, guys, let us know. Leave some comments down below. But in the meantime, we're going to be coming to you again soon. But until our next episode, remember to see
the good and stay imperfectly perfect. Bye, guys. Happy Halloween.